Good morning, campers, and welcome to Radio Camp Half-Blood, a Percy Jackson read-along podcast. And I'm your host, Zach.
And I'm B.
And this week we read Chapter 8. We board the Princess Andromeda, which sounds like the world's coolest science fiction name for a ship, but it's been used to death.
Yeah, it sounds more like a spaceship than a ship.
I think the problem, though, is when I hear that name Andromeda, I always think of cliche science fiction stuff, like flying saucers on fish string. So B, what did you think of this chapter?
It's kind of funny because the last chapter left off with sort of a ticking time bomb situation, because Hermes kind of swoops in, is like, here's your bags to go on this boat. You have 5 minutes to make up a decision before you get murdered by a bunch of harpies. Oh, also your friends are here.
And you have 5 minutes before you get eaten by harpies. Do, 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 do. I'm going to stop before we get some copyright claim.
Before we do the whole entire Jeopardy song. Anyway, so this chapter starts off where that one left off, just completely in media res, oh, I guess Annabeth is here and Tyson is here, and for some reason it sounded like Percy was calling them, I guess. There was some sort of trickery.
Help me, help me. Oh, heavens to Betsy, help me out.
Yeah, so I don't exactly know how Hermes did that, but he's a sneaky devil.
Well, remember, Hermes is the god of thieves, tricksters, and travel. Pretty much he could do whatever he wants.
That's true. It makes a lot of sense that he'd be able to trick somebody like that. So both of his friends appear, or I guess technically his half-brother and his friend.
So his entire family is here, because technically they are family, because they're all technically cousins.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That's kind of weird when you think about the sort of shipping implications. Anyway, there's a lot of weird stuff going on.
Yeah, and when people talk about that stuff, it gets really awkward and weird.
But Annabeth sees all the yellow duffel bags and is like, wait a second, what's going on? You're not in trouble, but you're packed for a trip that I didn't sign up for. And then Percy kind of very quickly explains the situation. I love that the way that the book does all that exposition is just, I told them about my conversation with Hermes.
Which, you know what, works, because I find it better if they didn't redid it, because I always find that to be super duper annoying when it's well, then this happened. Remember from that last chapter, we're going to recap the entire thing, because it is stupid. I know there's this thing when you write scripts, there's this thing called shoe leather, where it's the character goes to the door, opens it up, and then walks down the stairs. That's shoe leather. Usually a good edit is they go to the door, and then you see the establishing shot of them leaving the apartment or wherever they're leaving. You don't need to see all of how they get out of there.
Yeah, so they cut out kind of the unnecessary parts. We don't need to know how the conversation went, but it's kind of funny that he does a good job of giving this elevator pitch of everything that happened, because I don't know if I'd be able to explain absolutely everything in 5 minutes, or at least less than 5 minutes, because then the harpies kind of start to pick up on their scent.
How would you say that in less than 5 minutes? Hey guys, so my friend Hermes, Hermes, the god of thieves. Okay, we gotta keep going. So he gave me this duffel bag full of all this cool stuff. I got a thermos that points always north, and these vitamin mythology gummies. And also I have to save Luke, and we have to get the golden fleece, so let's go.
Yeah, a lot is going on.
Yeah, and then the thing that happens next is automatically Tyson and Beth believe Percy in his crazy story, and yeah, let's do it.
I mean, a lot of crazy stuff goes on, so it kind of makes sense that they believe him.
Yeah, and then here comes again. I like to use the slide whistle. Annabeth is like, Tyson can't come with us, and it's oh my god, please just stop. I understand.
Yeah, here's the Cyclops racism. Finally, Percy acknowledges it a little bit, where he's like, I wondered again why she had such a grudge against Cyclopses. There was something she wasn't telling me. So there's something up. I don't know what it is. What?
For me, I understand it's aggravating, because I know the reason why it's like this, but also it's the idea of, oh god, do we really need to have a story arc almost, and having, yes, Annabeth hates Cyclopses. You don't have to keep reinforcing it every chapter with her saying offhanded racist stuff.
Yeah, that's just her characterization around Tyson. That's just how she treats him. So it's kind of uncomfortable. In a very quick sort of moment, they have to decide who's going where and what's happening, and then it's Annabeth tries to kind of leave Tyson out of it, and then she starts spelling Cyclops, but she can't spell because she has dyslexia, because everybody has dyslexia.
Which I think is so clever because you forget that even though Annabeth is the smartest person in the camp, she still has dyslexia and ADHD. I love that when you forget something about a character and it's like, oh my gosh, like she's someone that's like, she's really established in her disability to the point of where you forget that she has it.
Yeah, but so she tries to spell Cyclops, but then it doesn't matter because Tyson has to come, because if they leave him behind, Tantalus is going to punish Percy and Annabeth by doing something to Tyson. Though maybe not quite Annabeth, because she has mixed feelings about Tyson. But anyway.
So knowing Tantalus, what would happen, it would be like the most dangerous game, where he gives Tyson like a head start and then they have to chase him through the woods. And then it'd be like a cool action movie where Tyson like just starts beating up all these poor kids.
Yeah, I mean, Tyson's already on thin ice as it is as a Cyclops in Camp Half-Blood, so I could definitely imagine him being like, all right, it's target practice with the ugly Cyclops that everyone hates.
Yes, and also Tantalus hates him, and most of the campers hate him, so it's not a good time. It's almost like imperative that Tyson leaves the camp with Annabeth. And Percy, you know what? Good thing Percy's a good person, because he's like, yeah, you're coming with me. And then it does the thing, it's like, hey God, it's me, Margaret. Can you hear me? Percy kind of like prays like, hey Dad, we haven't talked eye and eye for a while, but hey, could you send me some help? And then all of a sudden, out in the waves, gigantic sea ponies come out of the water.
Yeah, sea ponies. That's what Tyson calls them, right? He calls them sea ponies. It's very adorable that Tyson seems to love ponies, despite the fact that they're kind of freaked out by him.
So he's basically the gigantic version of Tina Belcher.
Yeah, he just loves ponies. It's really adorable, actually. And we've kind of already discussed that he's, like, mentally quite young. So that's, like, he just kind of says whatever's on his mind, and he, like, loves to just pet cute animals.
Yeah, so even Percy is, like, he has, like, the body of a young Cyclops, but he has, like, the mental capacity of, like, an 8-year-old.
Yeah, it's really cute. I like Tyson's sort of, like, gentle giant, like, innocent sweetness that, like, he just reacts, from his gut.
I'm getting some hardcore, like, Lenny vibes a little bit, and, like, he doesn't know any better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's just hope that he doesn't, like, squeeze a hippocampi to death, because that would be really bad. Right, well, hippocampi is the plural, right? Hippocampus is the singular. We were talking about this before we hit record, that it's interesting that I saw hippocampus, and I was like, that's a part of your brain. Apparently, that's where it came from, the name, because your part of your brain is shaped like a seahorse, I guess.
Yes, like someone did like an operation where they removed the hippocampus, and like, yeah, that looks like a seahorse. Hey, Jerry, do you want to see this thing that I took out of this guy's brain? It looks like a seahorse. Yeah, it kind of does. What should we call it? Let's call it the hippocampus. I was thinking seahorse, but that's a good idea too.
Yeah, all fancy and Greek-like. Anyway, so that explains that, because I was a little confused for a second why they had the same name.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things in, like, Greek names, like, usually the Greeks were the first people to come up with, like, the names for certain things, and they've just always transcended time itself. Do you know where we get the term thespian from?
No, I don't know, actually.
So thespian, or thespius, was considered the first actor ever. That's what we called a thespian.
Oh, that's fun. I was gonna say, apparently, hippo means horse, and campi, or campy, whatever, campus means sea monster. So it's kind of funny that, like, we have hippos now, and they're, that's a weird horse, you guys. That's not quite, it's like they looked at a hippo and went, well, that's sort of like a horse, I guess.
If you squint right, they're more like plus-size horses a little bit.
Well, I guess hippo means horse, and then what does potamus mean?
Oh my god, we're just, like, cracking the code. What about a zebra or a zebra?
That's a whole other thing. I need to look up why hippos are called hippos, because I know it means horse and then something else. Oh, river horse. It means river horse.
River horse. Yep, that looks like a river horse to me.
Because potamus, I guess, means river. So that's why hippos are called that, because they're river horses. Still not... I feel like they just kind of called any animal with 4 legs and, like, kind of a snout. Like, that's a horse, right? That's close to a horse.
Oh my god, it's kind of like how they name Pokemon. It's kind of like the basic characteristics of them a little bit. Like, yeah.
Seahorses don't really look like horses either, but we're getting sidetracked. Hippocampi are different.
Then here's a question, because I know the answer to this. Then why don't they call Pegasus as, hippo I know, Arius or something.
Yeah, right? Something like that, or hippo, and then something about bird.
The reason why is Pegasus was the first Pegasus, and they just used the name Pegasus to honor the original one.
Yeah, I think they explained that in the chariot races.
Yes, the horse formerly known as Pegasus.
Yeah, so it's a proper name that's then used into a species.
But yeah, so they have this plan, and they're gonna go sail off to the gigantic cruise ship off on the distance. And it's like one of those things like they decide to, because they decide they have to go onto the cruise ship because of the harpies. Come and find them. Like, oh my god, look at these campers that we could eat, which automatically sounds like a horrific thing. Like, oh, this is like a normal thing at camp.
I mean, in the time that he takes to explain the situation with Hermes, they kind of have no choice but to just go, all three of them, so they do, and then Hermes was the one who suggested that they, or that Percy use his good graces with his dad, I guess, to sort of summon the hippocampus is singular, hippocampi are plural. Yeah, so summon the hippocampi so they can go across the water to this giant ship.
Which is really funny because they talk about how they go underneath the water, and it's like, wait, only Percy can breathe underwater.
Yeah, I guess, like, I don't know, I was thinking the same thing, and I just kind of, like, suspended disbelief, like, oh, I guess the hippocampi emanate a shield so they can breathe, or I don't know exactly how it works. So they reach the ship, and then they realize it's, like, an enormous cruise ship, and there's no way they could possibly just heave themselves aboard. And then, of course, like, these magical sea ponies just know where to go, and they know where the ladder is, so they go to the ladder. And then this is when we find out that Tyson is, he's so precious, Tyson, that he knew this little seahorse.
So we have like the heartbreaking thing of, it's like Tyson doesn't want to leave his sea pony, and he's like, I love you, Rainbow.
Yeah, apparently he named it in, like, the 5 minutes that he knew him. So, yeah, or the 5 minutes that he knew the seahorse, like, oh, this is Rainbow. And then Percy's like, Rainbow? Who's Rainbow?
It's my horse. I named him. I love you, Rainbow.
Yeah, the hippocampus whinnied as if he liked his new name, so I guess he liked the name Rainbow. It's so sweet, like, Percy trying to, like, gently let Tyson down, like, we have to go. Rainbow, well, he can't climb ladders.
Though, you know what? This would be the sequel to Horsing Around.
It's the sequel to Horsing Around. And then Tyson is like, I'll miss you, Rainbow, and pets his mane and gets very sad.
This is totally the trope of, like, a horse movie where they have to let the horse go, even though they don't want to.
All right, get out of here, go.
I don't want you anymore. You smell. Sad nay.
I think that Rainbow might be making another appearance later in this book, because that would be really cute if there was sort of like that brick joke that, oh, here it is again.
So they climb up the ladder, and they go up to the gigantic cruise ship, and they start looking around, and they're afraid they're going to be caught. But for some weird reason, there's no one on this cruise ship. It's like really weird. Like they go through like platform and platform until they finally find a place that the doors kind of open. So they go into this very luxurious cabin.
Yeah, this is very suspicious because it's like, oh, there's like a little mint on the pillow and some sparkling cider. And
aww,
yeah, it's a basket of chocolate goodies. Like that's...
I'm just like expecting the joke would have been like they go in there and there's like a waterbed shaped as a heart. It's like the honeymoon suite.
Yeah. I knew someone who went to like an Adirondack, like sort of getaway, like a hotel that was, you know, made in the God knows when, the 70s or something. And there was literally, honest to God, a heart-shaped bed and like a heart-shaped hot tub in the room.
Yes!
Surrounded by shag carpeting.
Oh man, this just sounds like a nightmare. I'm just like, imagining this now, and you just start hearing like 70s like love music start playing with like heavy like bass, bow chicka wow, and then like a little disco ball comes down.
Anyway, it's a normal cabin. None of that. Well, as normal as it can be considering everything is empty, except for this. I guess there somehow everything is still like prepared for them. Like
no one has actually entered this room. It just so happens to be unlocked. So they hop into it. They lock the door.
Yeah, it's very suspicious and weird. And I'm definitely getting vibes of like the like the Lotus Casino in the first book, where it's like, oh, we're gonna try to lure you into submission and you're gonna be so distracted from your quest. Like, it feels definitely like there's something spooky going on. And then as soon as I had that thought, then Annabeth, of course, is like, you guys don't drink or eat anything. Like, there's definitely something enchanted going on that, like, you don't want to involve yourself in.
But yeah, no, it's like really weird and like mysterious because I do get like that Lotus Casino vibe to it where it's just like, what should we do? What? And it is clever that's like, don't eat or drink anything because it's like, if we stay here forever, we're going to be screwed. So they go to bed, and Percy, of course, has the horrific dreams. It's almost like expected that Percy Jackson would have a horrible dream. He's almost like, oh boy, what type of horrible nightmare will I have tonight?
He's always having horrible dreams at this point. I realized how completely screwed I would be if I was in Percy's situation, because as soon as I read the description of the sparkling cider and the chocolate and everything, I was like, ooh, snacks. Like, didn't even cross my mind that it might be, like, I was thinking that, but then also at the same time there was like this like animalistic impulse in me, like, I would definitely eat those treats if I was there. Which is such a bad idea.
For me, I would be like, guys, don't touch anything. Tyson, don't touch that mini bar. We're going to have to charge money if you touch anything in that mini bar. Because if you've ever been to Vegas, if you even simply touch like a bottle, they actually charge you for it because it's all weighed down on a pressure pad.
Yep.
So it's like super spooky scary. Well, they don't want people like stealing stuff and like then replacing it afterwards with another water bottle.
This is when Percy has another, I guess I keep calling them flashbacks, but they're not. They're like sort of flash sideways. They're visions of something that's happening currently, I guess.
Well, no, apparently it's like, meanwhile, back on the ranch, Percy like wakes up and he's in Tartarus, or like he's right next to like Kronos' pit, and all Kronos is doing is being a super creeper and just going, oh. Like he's just like laughing, really funny. And it's like one of those things where it's like, I don't know about you, B, but it's like when you have like vivid dreams like this, it's almost after a while it kind of gets annoying almost because you always expect when Percy goes to sleep, there's going to be some piece of new information we're going to get that's almost convenient to the plot.
Yeah, like he doesn't even get to rest when he's asleep because he has to get these sort of messages from his dreams.
Yeah, which seems like a really bad thing. It's almost like having like, well, the best way I would put it is almost like having pop-up ads in your brain while you're sleeping.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's kind of always in a state of wakefulness because even when he's supposed to be resting, he's like dealing with all this stuff. And now especially because of like this, I forget what it's called, empathy link or something.
Yes, the empathy link. So basically, Grover and Percy are pretty much like Squidward vein buddies at this point, and how if one of them dies, they both die.
Yeah, exactly. They're just like Squidward vein buddies. They're like brothers but closer.
Which is really messed up if you really think about it, because just imagine Percy Jackson like lives to a ripe old age, and then Grover dies of like natural causes, or even Percy Jackson dies of like natural causes. Then Grover has to die, which doesn't sound like a good like trait.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, well, because Grover, do satyrs live longer than gods or demigods? I don't know.
I would imagine that it would live longer than demigods, because they're mythical beings. But also, I mean, Percy Jackson won't live to like 1,000 years old. So it's like the one thing, it's like, you're shackled to me. It's almost like the argument in most like action movies. It's like, I've put the detonator on my heart. If my heart stops, then this whole place will blow up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like their combined essences or whatever, which is terrible because then Percy kind of has to experience all the terrible stuff that Grover's experiencing, which is awful because he's like in this torn up wedding dress and he's trying to like unweave the bridal veil, or what is it again?
The bridal train.
Yeah, bridal train.
Which just seems like he's just making like a cross stitch that just says like sheep, sweet sheep or something like really tacky. Like, oh, it probably says cave, sweet cave.
Oh, yeah, the Cyclops has a t-shirt that says World Sheep Expo 2001. I wonder what that means. What is a sheep expo? I've been to a sheep and wool festival.
I'm sure there's like a weird thing with a bunch of like people that love sheep so much, because there's a convention for everything, B. I've been to some really weird conventions.
I imagine like a bunch of sheep in like a giant popcorn container and just like a Cyclops like grabbing a handful and eating them.
But yeah, no, I've gone to some like really weird conventions. Like I've gone to a boating convention where just people admiring like the newest line of like private boats, and it was like the most boring thing I've ever gone to in my life.
Yeah, I feel like there's probably a convention for everything, even podcasters.
Yes. Why don't you donate to PodCon or Podcast Movement?
Hey, they're not sponsoring us. Yeah, also, isn't their crowdfunding thing over?
Hey, if it is, we'd like to go to PodCon.
PodCon.
I like how we have to like put our hand over the name. PodCon. So if anyone's listening from PodCon, we'd like to go to PodCon.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, right? Travis McElroy or possibly John Green? No, the other Green. Hank Green. There's a lot of brothers going on in this. Anyway.
So Joseph Fink.
Oh yeah, that's true, Joseph Fink. Any of you out there?
So if any of you guys want to invite us, we'd like to go. Or maybe we could go to the Joho cruise, which is almost convenient.
Yep. It's sort of like, oh yeah, that's true. That's like this chapter is the Joko cruise. I hope the Joko cruise isn't filled with. Anyway, we'll get to that.
So, but B, what have been like some of the weirdest conventions you've gone to?
I mean, I've been to Comic-Con, which like isn't that weird, I guess. I recently talked about it on Twitter, actually, that the one time that I went to Comic-Con and dressed as Klaus resulted in me being like one of the top Google results for Klaus Baudelaire is like my face.
Is that because like you kind of like, if you squint, you kind of look like Klaus? I'm sure like the facial recognition.
Yeah, like the algorithm was like, that's a Klaus, toe to tip. That seems like a Klaus to me.
I just hear B from across the United States. I'm in.
I tricked them. I tricked the algorithm. But other than that, one time I accidentally went to a conference because I went to, I don't even know if this place still exists, but I went to this hotel called the Friar Tuck Inn, and it was like medieval themed, which is weird. Yeah, it was like, it wasn't actually medieval, obviously, because it was in America.
I just like imagine that the concierges are like people like, they're like peasants like plowing the land.
It wasn't quite that level of dedication. It wasn't like a sort of Disney World type of immersion, but it was like
experience.
Very themed. It was on brand. But we showed up to this place.
I just imagine like the room you like walk into your room and it's like a medieval chamber and there's like, instead of like you get like complimentary like chocolate, you get like a complimentary bag of oats.
Yeah, it looked like a medieval times turned into a hotel, basically. And
this sounds adorable.
Yeah, it was pretty cute. I haven't been in a very long time. I wonder if it's still around.
It kind of reminds me of, in Vegas, there is like Excalibur, which is a really like rundown hotel, but I love it because it's so cheesy.
Yeah, so it's very heavily themed. And I remember I went to breakfast one day and we had realized suddenly that among the people having breakfast, we were a very small minority compared to like the hundreds of monks that were surrounding us. Because I guess it was a monk convention. I didn't know that monks had conventions, but I thought it was pretty funny that they're like, oh, we'll go to the Friar Tuck Inn. It'll be very on brand. Like they specifically sought out this monk-themed hotel for their monk convention, and then we just made the mistake of being normal people who were there at the same time. But it really added to the immersion. Oh, but here's what happened on that fateful breakfast buffet situation, where I saw a monk, and I felt like I had to say something. Don't ask me why. I was like, I don't know, 13? I wasn't thinking.
You were compelled.
I was compelled, and I felt like, oh, I guess I should, like, say something, because I should pay my respects to this man of the cloth. I don't know what I thought. I'm not sure what my reasoning was.
I'm just like imagining right now, again, this is like right between like the bacon station and the omelet station. Little B goes up to the man of the cloth.
And I turned to this man, and I don't know what possessed me to do this. I just, like, I did like finger guns, and like the Fonz, I said, "Ay." I don't know why that was my choice. I was like, I know exactly how to express deference to this holy man. I'm gonna do a Fonz impression.
I'm in the know with the monks.
And the man looked so confused. Like, truly, I mean, if you can picture, like, a just barely pubescent, tiny little me, like, in some sort of graphic t-shirt, probably, maybe it was a Harry Potter t-shirt, who knows? Something like that.
Even though you don't like Harry Potter, you have a Harry Potter t-shirt. Okay.
I had Harry Potter movie t-shirts. Anyway.
Oh. You know, actually, the Hufflepuff mascot actually is a friar?
Oh, that's true. It all comes full circle. But anyway, this man, he was very polite considering my strange interaction with him, and he just kind of was flustered and confused and walked away. But I don't think my mom has ever let me live down that weird interaction when I went to a monk. By the way, the Friar Tuck Inn is gone now. It's closed, permanently closed.
Was it invaded by the Vikings? Is it now Viking themed?
I think they just abandoned it.
You know what that kind of reminds me of, being now that thinking about it? There's like this movie with Dennis Rodman and Dan Cook, where I think they're secret agents, and their intelligence team is actually called Cyber Monks, where they're like these like the friar-looking monks that hack computers.
Do you think that that's what those monks were? They weren't actual monks?
It's actually a front that's actually like a cyber monk convention. It's like the gigantic hacking convention they do in Las Vegas every year. So Grover has this weird dream where, you know, he's doing his bridal train and Polyphemus is like, you only have 2 days to finish this. And it's almost like a sitcom where I'm thinking in my brain, there's like laugh track music happening. Where Grover's like, could you give me 5 days? No, I can give you 3 days. How about 7? Okay.
Yeah, he's messing with the timeline. Again, we talked about this because Cyclopses are not so great at math.
Yeah, so that's what would you call the sitcom? Grover and Company? Sheeping around?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is The Odd Couple, quite literally, isn't it?
Yes, because, like, Polyphemus is, like, the weirdest dude ever. Like, he wears, like, sheep cologne. Like, really cheap sheep cologne. Like, oh, this smells as good as you. It's, like, really creepy levels of, like... He's, like, really creepy.
Yeah, so he's basically, like, justifying the fact that he smells like a satyr, which I guess smells like goat. Same difference, because he has eau de goat, or what did he say? There was, like, some sort of made-up perfume. Eau de chèvre.
But, yeah, no, when it comes to, like, all this stuff, I always find it interesting when you have the idea of, like, this metaphorical clock and having, like, Percy Jackson have 7 days to do his trip and go to the Bermuda Triangle and save good old Grover, because obviously in most stories, the hero doesn't always get all that time. He usually has to use every single second. Like, it's always the deadline. And that's what's like one of the more interesting things when it comes to Percy Jackson is we have the idea of a time thing, which to a kid makes things sound 10 times more interesting because it's like it's a race against time, which, you know, is a thing that happens in The Lightning Thief a little bit, and how, you know, they have to get to across the United States in one go. Now they have to get pretty much the Mediterranean. I like that idea they have of, like, you know, it's the race against time and distance in the story rather than just time, because in the first book, it's, you know, they're going to start a war. Now it's actually Percy, like, he has his, like, I guess his clock was almost up for living.
It's interesting that we're talking about time, considering that Percy has his, like, interaction with Kronos, who, like, is also kind of the keeper of, I guess, time as we know it, right? Like, that's kind of what the lore is.
I never even thought of that, B. That's actually stupidly smart.
Stupidly smart. Do you know what I mean? Like, it makes sense why they're always on, like, a time crunch, because they're at the whim of what Kronos is going to do. Even though that he's, like, broken into pieces and thrown into Tartarus. Not Tantalus, that's different.
B, that is the smartest thing I've ever heard. And you know what? I am shooketh right now.
You're shooketh?
I'm shooketh right now. I'm like, oh my god, the main villain is time itself, and their main problem with every journey they've gone on so far has been time itself. Rick Riordan, you secret genius.
See, look at me. I'm so smart, you guys. I figured out. Sometimes it takes an idiot to truly realize what the book is trying to say.
All of a sudden, we have like a helicopter outside your house, and it's just like Rick Riordan's secret police force. You have to come with us.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, they killed them, I guess.
It's almost like Willy Wonka, and it's just like, B, I want you to write these books for me. I can't live forever.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that I was going to have some sort of like cruelly ironic death, like in Willy Wonka. What would be my cruelly ironic death if I was in Willy Wonka? It is Roald Dahl Day, by the way, when we're recording this.
What would be your cruelly ironic death in Willy Wonka?
I definitely think it would be probably something where I was like, I asked too many questions and then, I don't know.
No, you're reading the... No. See, you're stuck in like the wrapper room that makes all the cool, interesting Wonka trivia. And you know everything about Willy Wonka. So you're stuck in there.
Oh, okay. So the current existing Wonka chocolate company. Do you know what's really funny is actually the Wonka chocolate or whatever, like Wonka Candy Company was like made up based on Cadbury. If you've ever looked at Cadbury chocolates, they're purple.
Was it? No, Willy Wonka, the movie, was sponsored by Quakers because they wanted to make a new candy bar. If I remember the story correctly, they made the Wonka bar, except there was something wrong with the formula. So when the chocolate bars got to the store, they'd actually melt on the shelves.
Oh, wow. They weren't tempered correctly, I guess.
There was no like merchandising or anything for that movie because their merchandise was the chocolate bar, and it all melted.
Roald Dahl actually hated that movie, I think, from what I remember.
I actually really enjoyed that movie. It's actually one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I think Roald Dahl is wrong. So he was wrong on a lot of things, so I don't really hold his opinion too highly about a lot.
You know what my favorite line from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is that I actually live by, or I want to achieve?
What?
And it comes from the Gene Wilder movie, B?
Yeah, which one is it?
What happened to the man who suddenly got everything he always wanted?
He lived happily ever after. I love that. That's so cute. That's like one of my favorite lines. It's really good.
It's like the best way to end a movie. Sorry, we're getting so off topic, but there isn't really much to talk about with this chapter.
It's really good. Well, you know what? It's Roald Dahl Day, and it's my legal duty to talk about Roald Dahl today.
B, we've been blown off course.
I have a suspicion that the cruise ship isn't manned by a sail, I hope. It's not... It has a motor, right? It's not just... Or I guess maybe it's magic. I don't know how it works.
Well, maybe the captain got drunk at the wheel, and they accidentally did the nautical version of a U-turn. I'm sure ever since Titanic came out, the captains of cruise ships get mad because people go to the front of the ship and they go, "I'm the king of the world."
Yeah. Well, on the front of this cruise ship is Andromeda herself, who's like apparently was trapped on some rocks or something, and then the first Perseus saved her.
We actually find out where Percy's mom actually got Percy's name. Well, that's a lot to say. Was because he named Percy after Perseus because he's one of the only Greek heroes to actually have a happy ending.
Yeah, he doesn't die or have some sort of horrible tragedy befall him or some sort of curse. He's just kind of a dude who lives out his days.
If you've ever watched Clash of the Titans, that's the story, because the princess that he saves is Princess Andromeda from the dreaded Kraken.
And that's what this boat is named after. It all comes full circle. I was kind of disappointed, actually, in the characterization of the boat that they go on, because I was looking forward to meeting a bunch of I don't know, eccentric Greek mythology characters, and instead it's a ghost town, and then when they wake up the next day, it's mainly humans, I guess, who are, I don't know, enchanted.
They're mesmerized?
Yeah, they're mesmerized. They're not fully with us. And they're just walking around being like, I'm having a great time.
I think that's even funnier because it's the idea of having people that are mesmerized, and there's just horrific sea monsters on this boat.
I love the dialogue that they gave all the humans, though. It's just we are on a cruise. We are having fun. Yes, his three kids said in unison, their expressions blank. We are having a blast. We will swim in the pool.
I mean, to be fair, that's what most people say on a cruise ship. The other half just fight the entire time.
Yeah, I'd imagine. I definitely think that there was some bickering that happened on that cruise that I went on.
I just think it's really funny. It's almost like a Night Vale cruise a little bit. It's almost too conspicuous. We are having fun. Do you want to get food at the buffet?
Well, then there's also hellhounds and stuff, so it's kind of this horrifying contrast.
I picture everything as movie scenes or scenes in a television show. And the one they have with the hellhound, because they're walking through the ship, they go through the cafeteria, and they see a hellhound eating a gigantic tray of scrambled eggs. And it's almost like a wide shot where there's people behind the hellhound just patiently waiting for their eggs.
There's spooky snake people? I don't exactly know. They don't see them because they're all right, let's get out of here. And then they end up hiding in the women's room. I guess there's snake something or others going on. They don't really describe what they look like because I can't see them.
Yeah, and then we hear like the captain of the ship who in a very thick Australian accent's like, "G'day." I can't do an Australian accent other than that. I wish I had Meg with me right now.
Yeah, Meg is like rolling in her grave. Wait, she's not dead. Meg is just shooting straight up, right? Like, ah.
Like her Meg senses are tingling right now, all the way from England. Someone's making fun of Australia.
Yeah, terrible Australian accent.
The surprising thing is I know a lot of people now from Australia, so I could probably get someone to actually say it, but it's like, they say like, "G'day, mates. We got like, we have like a buffet in the Kraken Lounge. And we also have disembowelment practices on the pool deck in an hour."
Yeah, that's kind of like their first hint that like, oh, I guess there are people here and also some pretty bad stuff is going on. I'm still a little confused as to why when they first got on the ship that it was completely empty and they couldn't hear anything, and now it's full of people who are like either mesmerized or they're monsters.
Possibly it's kind of like when they got to the cruise ship, there's either two trains of thoughts. The first is they were there super late, so there's just everyone that was mesmerized is programmed to, "This is me going to sleep now," and they just like fall over and they sleep for like 8 hours.
I guess, but they even were like, oh, they didn't even hear noises or anything coming from the cabins. Like it just seemed like everything was empty.
The other school of thought was possibly when they got on the ship, it was like derelict already, and there was this like a ghost ship, and then Luke and the crew went onto the ship.
Oh, so like afterwards, I guess, to like...
Yeah, it's almost like coincidental.
So it happened while they were sleeping. That's another theory, I guess. I don't really know what's going on yet, so we might find out. This is also when the very end of the chapter is when they overhear Luke's voice, and they're like, wait a second, he's here. Which is kind of like funny that like Hermes sent them on this ship, and I don't know if he knew if Luke was there, because he was looking for him.
Oh, I'm sure he knew. Because remember, B, apparently there's the Force in this, because Percy felt a disturbance. He felt like there was a mighty presence on the ship that he hasn't felt in many years. "I'm endangering the mission for just being here."
We kind of overhear a little bit of his plot where Luke says, "It'll pay off. They'll take the bait. Now come, we've got to get to the Admiralty suite and check on the casket." There's a lot of weird stuff going on. There's a casket. There's a bait that they're trying to use. Like, I'm not exactly... There's a lot of open ends as to like what his plan is to trap somebody, something. There's a casket. It's weird. There's a lot going on. I actually talked to you about how I found this chapter to be a little short because when they find out that Luke is on the boat, I expected for the chapter to go on a little bit further with them pursuing him and eavesdropping, and then we would get to the next chapter. But it just completely like, oh, well, I guess there's something going on with Luke, and then we don't find out in this chapter.
Looking at it, because I actually went back when we were talking about this, I think how the format of this book is broken up is every 20 pages has to be a chapter.
Yeah, regardless of where it leaves off.
Where it leaves off, or close to that, because, like, obviously this chapter could have stretched a lot further, but to a kid, maybe they can only retain about 20 pages of information before they can stop.
I guess. I don't think that's necessarily true, but I do think that they could have at least been like, oh, let's follow Luke, and they could have... That cliffhanger could have been less ambiguous. Like, they just were like, oh, I guess we'll follow Luke, and then that is where it leads off. Instead of them following him, and then, as they're about to hear what's going on, then I think that's would make sense for me to where the chapter would end, but I don't know. That's just my opinion, man.
I think I figured out the theory. The theory is so Rick Riordan finished the book, and his editor actually is an oracle, and they knew that we would be reading this book as a podcast. And it's like, you need to put the chapters specifically here, 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 and here. We'll have to eventually come up with a name for our great prophecy that we have.
Yeah, I mean, we basically do have an oracle to some extent because I'm making predictions. You already know what happens. You are the oracle. I
guess that's right, because I kind of misdirect you or say random things, and you might not know until it's too late.
It's true. That's what it is. I'm a demigod and you're the oracle. That's how our podcast works. But yeah, it leaves off there. They find out Luke's on the ship. They find out some sort of spooky thing is going on, but we don't really know. There's a lot of weird stuff going on. What could possibly be a casket? What? That? There's a lot going on. Is Kronos in the casket? For some reason, that's what I'm thinking. I don't know. There's a lot going on.
There's a lot of things that are going on. Maybe it's not Kronos in the casket. Maybe it's something worse.
I keep thinking, oh, maybe Hermes is working with his son, and, the bait is the Golden Fleece and that Hermes intentionally sent Percy to like be trapped, or like who knows? Like it's hard to trust anybody.
Well, if he did that, why would he give Percy all the gifts and stuff?
I don't know. I can't trust anybody in this book.
Oh man, you can't trust anyone? You can't even trust me? Oh.
Well, I can't trust you to tell me anything because you're like hiding all of the information about this book, so.
But who was phone, B? Who was phone?
Luke was phone. It's coming from inside the home.
It's coming from inside the casket? It turns out the casket is a phone. Ring, ring. And then Percy opens it up and he's like, have you checked the children? Annabeth, you here? Yeah. Yeah, they're checked. Oh, wrong number. Click.
Yeah, it just leaves off in a weird space, so I just want to know more about what's going on with Luke, because just, like, he says just enough to be, like, confusing.
Well, it's also the idea of, like, they're eavesdropping a little bit, so they're only getting bits and pieces of information.
Yeah, he says, I'm just saying if this gamble doesn't pay off. There's, like, just a lot of vague speak about some sort of plan happening, but, like, I can't even begin to guess what's going on.
It's like, the idea of having, like, I guess good writing versus bad writing. Good writing is having like, maybe we want to have these answers, like we want these answers to be answered later on, rather than Luke is like, haha, I am evil and here is my evil plan. Right next to you, subordinate. Luckily, there was no good person here, like my dreaded enemy, Percy S. Jackson. You know, the person I've sworn to hate. And then it goes into like an evil laugh. I mean, there's certain kids' books that I've read where like they lay out the entire plot without any mystery. And it's like, oh, like how like a normal person would not talk be is like, you'd ask me, how's the weather? The weather is great. Have you heard that the king is slowly dying of a mysterious poison?
Yeah, a lot of exposition and daily conversation. So it is good that he leaves it open-ended, but I'm like, I think just the specific way that the chapter is delineated.
Well, for us, it's aggravating because we want to know more and we want to have more to talk about.
I mean, I guess I could keep reading now that we've done this episode, so I can jump in.
Oh no, you can't. You gotta wait. Shifty eye.
That's the thing. I try to like read the chapter closer to when we're gonna record, because then I have to like wait almost a whole week before I can read the next chapter, and then that's like drives me crazy a little bit.
I mean, I'm much like you, B, where I could easily like reread all these books, but being a good podcaster, I'm like, I'm only gonna read the chapter for this week, and we're gonna talk about that chapter for this week. I'm not gonna read ahead. Where I'm gonna have the general reaction as a person rereading these books for the first time after many years.
Yeah, it would be really funny if you didn't read the book, and then I was just the one reading the book, and then you were just, like, told the plot from me, the person reading it for the first time.
That would be really funny, too. Like, I always wanted to do, like, this is a podcast anyone can steal. You give a person all the trailers for a movie and ask them to see if they can actually come up with the whole movie with all the bits and pieces of the trailer.
Wait, I think that already is a podcast.
Is that already a podcast?
Yeah, I think it is. That sounds familiar.
Good for them.
Good for them for taking our idea.
So what do you think is going to happen next chapter, B?
Oh, God. I mean, I guess they're going to follow Luke, aren't they? They're going to find out his plot, but they might get caught. Who knows? They're going to eavesdrop somehow to figure out what's going on.
They're going to be dropping some eaves?
Yeah. Other than that, I don't even know what's going to happen. There's some sort of... I mean, something's happening with Kronos still, even though that we're told to believe that he is, like, pitched into the depths of Tartarus. I still think something's happening with that.
I want to say this is a Greek motto, but I might be wrong, and this might actually be Latin, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Only in death do we triumph.
Yeah. Other than that, like, I don't really know that we're not going to obviously find Grover anytime soon, because that clock is still ticking for a while until probably the almost the conclusion of the book. We're gonna find where Grover is and fight the giant Cyclops, whose name I forget.
Polyphemus?
I don't think a ton is gonna happen next chapter. I think it's mainly gonna be them finding out Luke's plot, but I don't know what they're gonna do from there. If they're gonna stay on the boat, or I don't know, they're gonna have to summon the sea ponies again. I'm not sure.
They end up in a storm and they end up in a little island where people are drinking nothing but coconut water.
Yeah, a lot could happen in the next chapter, but I'm not exactly sure, other than that they're going to obviously follow Luke and figure out what's going on with that.
So, B, what is the name of the next chapter?
The next chapter is Chapter 9, I Have the Worst Family Reunion Ever.
So that sounds like most family reunions I've ever gone to.
That's true. Family reunions are very rarely a successful endeavor, but yeah, we were just talking about how a lot of people could be considered his family, like basically all of the gods and demigods are his family, and also Cyclopses.
Obviously, what's going to happen is they're going to meet up with Luke because it's a family reunion.
I keep thinking about how obviously Tyson is his half brother, but like is every Cyclops. So that's weird to think about.
Yes, Percy Jackson is not a single child. He just has a lot of half brothers and sisters.
Yeah, he certainly does. So yeah, he could be meeting all sorts of people.
The stipulation that Poseidon is like the thirstiest boy in all of the seven seas is sad to me.
I just realized most of the characters could be considered his family.
Well, they're all his family because technically Annabeth and Percy are cousins.
Yeah, I mean, right, Annabeth and Percy are related in some way because of the gods and whatever. They're both related in that respect. But I guess not Grover. Grover's not related to them because he's a satyr. But like most everyone else, everyone at Camp Half-Blood.
If you're a demigod, you were basically cousins with each other.
Yeah, all the demigods and then all the Cyclopses are related to Percy. So it could be anybody.
Yeah, it seems like we haven't really talked about ships, but this is the main reason why I don't like talking about ships in Percy Jackson is they're all really creepy.
Because it's like, there's some spookiness going on there. That's a little weird.
This is the problem that I have is people are like, yeah, I love it if these two kids from two separate cabins like fall in love. It's like, what happens if a kid falls in love with the same person in his cabin?
Yeah, that's...
Like, there's some like unanswered questions that I don't want answers to.
Yeah, same cabin means same parent. Not good. Bad times.
No, it's not good at all.
Yeah, it's icky.
We try to avoid shipping as much as possible because for us, that's not what we're interested in.
That's a very good reason. I never even thought about how related everyone is, so that adds a layer of creepy that I don't want to think about.
And I'm so sorry, everyone, if I've just bursted your bubble, but it's
everyone's like, wait a second, what?
It can be like a really weird argument, but that's kind of like our policy. We don't really talk about ships. You know, if they're stated in the books, that's totally fine. Other than that, we probably don't have any opinions on them. For both being 20-somethings, our idea of kid romance is much different than adult romance, I think. We'll just leave it at that because,
we'll leave it at that.
But yeah, no, we didn't get any iTunes reviews and we didn't get any emails this week. I think they must have gotten lost in Tartarus this week.
No, they just fell into a pit.
That darn Tartarus. But, that's totally fine. We really like when we get emails and messages. I think this is like the first time we've gotten none. I'm sure it has to do a lot with like Labor Day and also the hurricane that's raging through the Carolinas right now. So everyone needs to stay safe if you live there.
Yeah, I just heard that got downgraded at least to a category 2. So but still, watch out. It's dangerous. So
I guess our advice is all the water and make sure to read your favorite books and hunker down in the bunker. So B, where can they find you?
You can find me on Tumblr at twinpoetry.tumblr.com, and you can find me on Twitter at bkellygorman.
If you want to find me, you can find me at Suda41. That's SUDA41. If you want to email the show, you can email us at radiocamphalfblood@gmail.com. Or if you want to tweet at us, you can tweet at us at halfblood_radio. We'd really appreciate a follow. We're going to be putting up some exclusive stuff specifically for there. We're actually thinking about Twitter just did this cool thing where we can actually add broadcasts, so we might start recording our show live. So that might be something that we might be looking into.
Like an audio live show thing.
You might want to hit that little follow button, so that might be something that's coming through the pipeline soon. If you also want to support us on Patreon, we have a nice Patreon account where we have exclusive content that you can only find on Patreon. That's Radio Camp Half-Blood at patreon.com. Just type it in and you'll find it real quick. I think that's pretty much it. We also have t-shirts. If you go to www.ghoulishfancies.com, you'll find the t-shirts very easily on our store page. If you want to be as cool as B's mom, you can buy a shirt and all the proceeds will go back to helping our show. We really appreciate it. I'm Zach.
I'm B.
And keep staying mortal. Bye.
Bye, guys.